Alright, Outlaw Radio Live fans, we are live on the air with the legendary DWyze of the legendary rap duo, the B.U.M.S. How you doing this evening?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I am doing great, man. I'm doing great. First and foremost, I want to say this is an absolute honor to have you on my platform, so thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on the show, man. I appreciate it.
No doubt. I appreciate you hitting me, Blair.
So I want to ask you this one first off, man. So I have to ask you, what made you decide to get into the music industry?
Oh man, the first time I heard rap, man. Old school, The Message by Grandmaster Flash, The Furious Five. Cats like Too Short in my area. Just growing up around hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Right when it just began.
Oh yeah, most definitely. You can't go wrong with Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, man. Absolute East Coast classics, East Coast legends.
Yes, sir.
So I have to ask this, man. In the year 1994, you and E-Vocalist came together. I have to ask you, how did you and him get connected? Like, what's the story behind that iconic formation of the B.U.M.S?
Well, we were both members of the world famous Sway and King Tech Wake Up Show. And I was an MC on there. Yvonne was an MC on there. We both were solo artists. So we wasn't in a group together. We were both solo artists, but we used to always freestyle over the Wake Up Show at the end of the show, like 15, 20 minutes before the show was over. We would just go back and forth off of each other and to where we got comfortable. And one day in like 1993, A&R from Priority Records happened to hear us freestyling over the air, and they decided to, they were out there looking for artists to sign to their label, and they were on their way back to LA, and they heard us over the radio, so they came back to the radio show and asked who was those two dudes that just finished rhyming, and he was like, that guy and that guy, and he was like, are they a group? So then Sway walked over to us, Sway of Sway's Universe and everything else over the world. So he came over to us and asked us, were we a group? He said, that guy over there is A&R from Priority Records. And he was asking me if you guys are a group. So from right then and there, we just talked for a few minutes, and we came up with a group. We came up with the name, and we became the B.U.M.S.
That's crazy, man. That was pretty much like you guys were just doing the right thing, and someone happened to turn on the radio at the right moment, at the right time. Most definitely, that was meant to be.
He was actually at the Wake Up Show. You know what I'm saying? He came up there and, he was over the air. He was telling everybody that, he came out here, looking for Bay Area artists that he could possibly sign to Priority Records. And he came out with a few artists, and he said he was looking for a few more, but he was on his way back to L.A., and, just so happened on the way back to L.A. in the limo to the airport, he got him to hear us. And he made the limo driver turn around and come back to the show. And that's where it all happened.
And I have to ask you, since you were signed to Priority, that's how it all happened. What was it like working for the label and working for Brian Turner?
Well, we were actually signed to All City Records, and Priority was our distribution. But being signed to Priority Records, we still were signed to Priority. We had a record deal, so it was wonderful. It was a learning experience. First time, actually being signed to a record label out the gate, which is pretty much, cool as hell for, saying that you want to be an artist and then on your first go around you get signed. So it was pretty big. And learning experience, young, didn't really know the business, but I learned the business later.
Oh yeah, most definitely, man. And also I have to ask you this, when I was doing my research for the interview, I did not know that you guys actually did a song for this, but I had to ask it. So, the B.U.M.S also appeared on the Street Fighter soundtrack with "It's a Street Fight."
Yeah.
What was it like doing that soundtrack, and how did you guys become a part of such a huge video game franchise?
Well, first of all, they asked us. Priority had deals with the movie companies that they were doing, that the movies came out under. I think it was New Line Cinema or something like that. I can't remember exactly. But they were linked in with them, and they were always getting, artists sending stuff in to the label, for submission for the movie soundtrack. So, they asked us, have have you ever played the game Street Fighter? I'm like, come on, everybody's played Street Fighter. And so we tried to get on Friday soundtrack, but they didn't. It was already taken. So we got on. We did the record. It's a street fight, and it turned out to what it could be. Basically a classic. You know what I'm saying? So it was fun though. I got to meet Jean-Claude Van Damme and a couple of other actors that was from the movie, and so on and so forth. But it was cool.
That's actually pretty cool, actually. I actually have that movie on DVD. I have not had the opportunity to watch it yet. I think tonight after the broadcast, I really do think that it's a fitting night to watch it.
Yeah. You just gotta, it's pretty much, cool movie, trying to extend onto the video game, but it was good.
Oh, yeah. Whenever I go to the pawn shops, I just buy like a stack of movies. They're like 50 cents a pop nowadays. So I just buy a stacks and I'm on stacks and watch them. But I have to ask you this. After Street Fighter, the B.U.M.S released their debut album, Life and Time. What's the inspiration behind that iconic record, and how did it all come to be?
Well, basically, coming from East Oakland, Ebola from North Oakland, it was some crazy, can I use profane language?
Oh, yeah, it's an uncensored radio station. How about it?
Oh, okay. It was a lot of fucked up shit going around in Oakland. You know what I'm saying? We've seen a lot, during our life and time. So we sat down and we decided to come up with this record. We both telling stories about, shit that happened on his side of the city, shit happened on my side of the city, and we just all mixed it into a nice gumbo pot of hip-hop.
And I have to say, man, that album is one of the most iconic records I've ever heard. I remember when I was younger, I used to have the CD copy. What was the atmosphere in the studio? You guys recording your first record. What was the feeling, man? Recording that record.
Very long nights. We basically lived in the studio. I actually just finished going through that situation recently of doing recording projects and songs. It's a real hectic and tedious situation. You got to basically really close yourself out from the world. You know what I'm saying? And really stick to, the task at hand. And studio time was like, you go to, if you had a job, you go to work, you go to the studio. When you leave the studio, you go home, go to work, back to the studio. When you're off work, you're in the studio. You ain't doing shit, you're in the studio. And so it was just continuous studio. It was real tedious. You get your writer's block, you get into arguments, and just to put a project together. You know what I'm saying? It was just, it was wonderful. It was a wonderful time and a great experience, but it's real tough when you got to make a record and you're trying to make a monumental record out the gate. You know what I'm saying? So it was real tough, but it was a wonderful, we hit the finish line real good.
And the following year, unfortunately, the B.U.M.S disbanded. I have to ask you, what made you guys What made you guys decide to go your separate ways?
We never see. That's the first thing everybody just thinks. The B.U.M.S never broke up. Only thing that happened with the B.U.M.S is that Priority. At the end of our record deal with them, they let us go. That's it. That's all. The group is still the group. Evolve does. It's been the same way since when we were together. He did his thing, I did my thing. But when it came to the group, we come together. You know what I'm saying? So he was a solo artist in the beginning. I was a solo artist in the beginning. The B.U.M.S is just a conjunction of both, but it's just put together. You know what I'm saying? So the B.U.M.S is still the B.U.M.S. We have records that we recorded. We recently recorded late last year. So, the thing is, we never really got a chance to branch out there and do things for ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So this is what we did. So we decided to go out and started making records and doing our thing on the solo side. So that's exactly what we did. And we still come together when we make our own music.
And that was actually, that was later on in the interview I'm going to ask this question. But before we get off the topic of the B.U.M.S, I want to bring this one up. I saw on your Instagram, August of last year, I saw a post on your Instagram where you said the B.U.M.S new shit in the works right now. I have to ask you, what can we expect from that project? And when is the estimated release date of that project being released to the public?
Well, we actually got records that are being released. Well, we both have records that we've already released. I've released a project right now called Wyze. Front door. Front door. Somebody, the coach is at the door. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's all good, man. No worries.
Yeah. So we both have projects that we always put out. You know what I'm saying? He's doing his thing. I'm doing my thing. We both have we have records that we have together that we're going to release sometime soon. But right now, we actually never got a chance to really, rock solo projects. But we got music, so don't ever think that we don't. You know what I'm saying? We can still come out to this day and shake up some stuff. You know what I'm saying? So we good.
Most definitely, because when I read that's why I asked the question about the disbandment, because I read it on the internet, but I only found it on one site. That's kind of why I was like, you know what, I'll bring it up. If it's true, obviously I'll get the answer. If it's not true, he'll tell me, right? So I'd rather just ask to get the correct information while I already have you here.
Yeah, the group is still the group, man. The B.U.M.S never broke up. I got records. I did solo records, and I've answered that question in those records. You know what I'm saying? Just to put it to rest. You know what I'm saying? Like, so every interview they ask me, I say, you want me to call him up? You know what I'm saying? He's good. I talked to him last night. You know what I'm saying? So the B.U.M.S are still the B.U.M.S. The B.U.M.S is just doing music all over the place right now. I just recently did a record with All Purpose, Phantasm. It's the .X called The Real One. So, all I'm doing is I'm doing stuff that I didn't get to do early in the game.
And I also have to ask you, that's another question I had, but since you brought it up, I'll ask it now. In January, you dropped a new single called The Real Ones. What's the inspiration behind that song? Where can our listeners stream or buy a copy of that single?
You can find that on all streaming sites, you know what I'm saying, that you can think of. You can find it on iTunes, you can find it on Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music, Amazon, everywhere. You can find it everywhere. And the inspiration came from, I actually had done a couple of records with my man All Purpose from an old school Philly group called Prophets of the Ghetto, POG for short. And I ended up doing a couple of records with him, and one of them had .X on it. And so what happened was, so if I happen to do some records, is it possible y'all could do a favor, we could return each other's favor. And so we ended up hooking up, and I came up with the track and shot it to him, and one by one, the song is called Real Ones, but it spells out DAX because that's the first initial of every MC on the song. DWyze, All Purpose, Phantasm, to .X. So that comes out spelled DAX. And it fell into order just the way it sounds.
Most definitely. So everybody that's listening, make sure you head on over, stream that single, buy that single, support The Real, support DWyze. That's all I'm saying, guys. So also in the year 1998, so we're going back a couple of years, you were featured on Various' single called Dance Some Mo, and also the single No Love. I have to ask you, how did you and Various get together, and what was it like doing that project?
Well, he actually, I'm a barber by trade, and he actually had heard about me through the B.U.M.S, and he was like, I dig that dude's voice, so, can I get him on a record? And so he's like, man, just go up to the barbershop and, holler at him. And, they actually called the barbershop and was like, I would like to get you on this record. And he was like, I said, when are you trying to hook up? And he was like, today. So we ended up linking up and doing the record the same day he asked me. So I went to the studio later on that day and recorded the record. And A+ from the Souls of Mischief, he's also on the record as well.
Okay, that's not bad. But it seemed, honestly, at least he actually came to your barbershop and and got that connection together, man. I have to say those singles are absolute fire.
Oh yeah, those are classic joints, man. They're Party Cut, and then the Daps record is basically just like a real boom bap, just a straight hip hop banger.
And also, December 20th of 2018, you did a concert called Wax Trippin'. For the holiday toy drive. I have to ask, what was that experience like, and do you do any other charity work within your community?
Yeah, man, back in the day, man, we used to do a lot of stuff, man. We did the backpack giveaways. We go to the school, talk to the kids. anything you could think of back then. You know, I get a lot of phone calls to come through, you know, show support for whatever, you know, what kind of charitable event that goes on. So I'm down for whatever. You know, when it pertains to my city, Oakland, California, I'm down for, you know, for whatever when it's approached to me. And that's always been my motto. But it was a wonderful experience. You know, I performed there, you know, many times at Wax Tripping, but you know, all the events that I've always done there has always been good.
And as you mentioned earlier, you were also a barber. What made you decide to pursue that profession? And also, how can our listeners go about getting a legendary haircut from DWyze of the B.U.M.S?
Come to the barbershop. That's how you can do that, first of all. But well, back in the day, you know, my mom used to always say, you know, you should always try to obtain something that no one can ever take from you. So a trade is something that they can never take from you. You own that. You possess that. You mastered that. So me becoming a I became a barber by, you know, cutting my own hair and then cutting everybody in my neighborhood. And then after high school, I went to barber college, and then from there on, I've been a barber and an MC. So I've always done both, you know, during the whole time. So while I was with the B.U.M.S, whenever I come back home, I go back to work at the barbershop. You know what I'm saying? Why not go make some money if I'm not doing anything?
That's true. So I have to ask you this, man. There's a lot of artists out there that are really trying to make a name for themselves. What's some great advice you can give some of these artists that are really trying to excel in the music industry?
Man, first and foremost, always think out of the box. Always, you know, let your creative juices flow. Never be afraid to try something different. You know what I'm saying? A lot of dudes in the game right now, they tend to follow what's going on. But, you know, it's best to make your own lane in music because you'll stand out. You know what I'm saying? Other than just, you know, following right down the same line as with everybody else and what they got going on. So I always tell them to, you know, stay original. You know, production is the key. Production makes you right. You know what I'm saying? So I always tell them, like, always try to find great production. You know, don't look for a beat maker. Look for a producer. You know what I'm saying? And get with a producer that can grow with you so you can grow with him. And you know, and your music can expand. So that's all I really tell them is, like, stay focused. You know, the grind is hard. You know what I'm saying? It's different from when I was when I started, you know, because everything is gone to streaming sites and it's digital. You know what I'm saying? The internet is taking over. So, but what I do is I tell them straight up, like, you know, stay focused, stay humble. You know, you may strike gold, you may not. It may take you 10, 20 years to make it, but as long as you stay focused, it'll happen. It only takes one person to hear your record, and then it's over.
And that is some really, really solid advice to actually give people, man. I think that's some of the realest advice I ever had an artist give on this show. But DWyze, what's next for you, man? Is there any other projects, anything else you want to let our listeners know about? Anything else you want to promote while you're still here?
I'm actually getting ready to drop a new single in the next few weeks, maybe 3, 4, maybe about a month, because I got to go out of town next week. So when I get back, you know what I'm saying, I'm going to go ahead and master the single and go ahead and drop it. It's called Survival. And it's produced by a cat named Mulate. He's actually from Poland, from Dutch Poland, and I was able to find him, you know, via Instagram, and we just been going through back and forth, and he shot me some tracks. I enjoyed them, and I took them, and I'm putting it out.
Hey man, that's what's up. You know what I mean? It's always good to do some international work. It's crazy how the internet really brings individuals together nowadays. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have to ask you, DWyze, this is the time in the interview that I give a chance for the individual that comes on my show. Just a chance to give shout-outs to whomever they want to give shout-outs to, and also your social media handles. That way our listeners can follow you as well if they're not already doing so.
Yeah, okay. First, also, I want to give a shout-out to my label, 55th Hill Records. I want to give a shout-out to Poetic Beats, Mulate, my man Spider Beats, CMT Track, my man Ferg, my man Jeff Kwan, BCP Media. And then you can find me everywhere, man. I'm on Instagram, DWyze55 of the B.U.M.S. Same handle on Twitter. Same on Snapchat, DWyze, a.k.a. Wyze. If you want to look for me on Facebook, I'm not afraid of my name. It's D'Angelo DWyze Smith. can find me there. You can find all my music and upcoming, things that I'm getting ready to do on those handles. So, check me out. If you follow me, I'll follow back. If you respond to me, I'll respond back.
Hey, most definitely. I want to say, DWyze, thank you so much for coming up on Outlaw Radio Live, man. It was an absolute honor and a privilege. You have yourself a wonderful rest of your weekend.
No doubt.
And thank you so much.